Welcome to a live photo critique. This critique is going to be on costumes. We're a little late. We should have done it right after Halloween. But we're going to be doing costumes and cosplay in this critique. If you want to be a part of the next critique, we're doing RGB lighting or really unnatural, over-the-top colors in your lighting. You can go to fstoppers.com/contests right now.
I do like that image that you took on our main channel.
Yeah.
It turned out a lot better than I thought. Somebody said it looks like you're still on the toilet at a fancy club. So, mission accomplished?
Mission accomplished. That's what I wanted. And we've seen there's two people in the live chat who have been asking about the when are we doing another coronavirus journal. I think we're doing it tonight. We've got a little update on the coronavirus.
It's over with.
Crazy.
We're done.
That's true. People are dancing in the streets because Trump has lost, I think officially, but you know, Trump is saying he still won. We'll talk about all this later tonight. So stay tuned for that. Make sure that you're subscribed to this YouTube channel. This is the Fstoppers Live YouTube channel. And if you're watching live right now on fstoppers.com, click on over to YouTube and have fun in the live chat with everyone. Are you ready, Patrick?
I am. We have 10 images as always.
Okay.
The new format.
Yep.
Do you want to pick random winners? How should we do this?
2 and 10.
2 and 10.
Okay.
Okay, they will be the winner of a free tutorial at fstoppers.com/store. This is the highest rated image of the critique.
Very well done. Who is this photographer? This guy's work, he does lots of high-end cosplay stuff.
This is Allison? It's a girl?
Oh, really?
Allison Tibitha?
I didn't think so. Okay, I thought this was, is it David Lowe or something like that?
Well, that's who I thought it was too, now that you mention it, but I don't know why there's a different name.
Nope, David Lowe is the one.
Then why does he have a different, maybe that's the girl?
Maybe that's the
it's the Instagram model. Sorry, I was giving credit to the wrong person.
Yeah, so you ready to rate this one?
I am. We got a little gnat in here.
Let's see. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, so.
What did you give it?
I gave it 4. I think we both gave it 4. I think the styling looks great. The lighting looks great. I think the one negative I have for this is I feel like something about her pose, and I think it's, you know, just because she's a beautiful tiny girl, but she just doesn't look
like a fighter,
like she's really in a strong pose to me. It kind of feels more model-y than like I'm really holding this heavy shield type thing. It's close. It's very close, and I feel like her facial expression is great, but that's probably maybe my only critique for this. I think it looks awesome. I love the colors and the the warm in the foreground and the cool in the blue background.
These costumes in some of these images are pretty intense. Like, I think that's kind of what makes this photography work, is your costume has to be over the top. And then also, you won't see a lot of the images I didn't choose, but the lighting. So many people get the awesome costume, but then the lighting's just really flat.
Yeah.
Or it's super cheesy, like 45-45, and you're like, you have the costume, and then the lighting doesn't work. Or you have awesome lighting, but the costume looks like something, I made for Halloween. Like, it doesn't feel substantial. Yeah, so I think looking at all of the images, this was my favorite one.
And keep in mind, this isn't necessarily cosplay. You don't have to be some known character for this critique. We just are allowing cosplay.
I was kind of hoping not to go that direction.
Yeah.
But here we are with the highest image, Wonder Woman. I love all of the little particles and the bokeh and the blurry background, and it's got that Hollywood feel to it. Like this is edited to that standard, which, in my opinion, if you're trying to add images to your own portfolio, I think that's always a great direction to go. Like you should, if this is the kind of stuff you want to do, you should compare your work to the posters that are at the theaters, to the billboards that are on the side of the road,
Yeah.
Go to their websites, and check out what they're doing. So,
yeah, it's weird. I would have never thought that you could really make money in this industry Certainly in the Hollywood movie poster industry, yes, but like recreating that with Instagram models and internet nerds and stuff, I just didn't think that would be a job. But David was having a conversation with people, and he was saying that he has consistent work and he does this, I guess, full time as a living, which is awesome.
Well, you got to imagine how many people are involved in this. Like, there's a costume company that makes high-end costumes that need imagery like this so they can sell the costumes to more people. Some of them might be custom made.
I just don't, like, these are so specialized. I just don't know how
I bet
many
you
of
there's a whole industry of this stuff.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is.
And then you got the models who have their whole huge following, and then they're making income on the back end, and so like they always need high-end imagery to like keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
You mentioned her face, like,
I mean,
there's something about it that doesn't feel like she feels a little more like a model.
Yeah, I agree.
Than the beautiful actresses who have the character, like they're fierce and they're in it. You know, this feels like she's kind of zoned out, just being pretty.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I mean, she's got the fierce eyes, but she's got the beautiful mouth. You know, you would think if she's running. And, you know, you get the vibe she's running from the pose and from the blurry background. She's running towards enemies that are literally shooting at her, and she's blocking them.
With no weapon.
Yeah, you would think that she would be like, you know, but I don't know.
That being said, I still give this a 4. I like to be harsh even on the high-rated images so that you guys have a concept of, like, what the standard should be. Is there anything in the description here on the website?
David says Allison is famous in cosplay for her makeup and ability to look like the actress/actor. She does mostly movie characters, which are my favorite to work on, as you can study scenes in the films and find moments worth celebrating as a fan. She posts free tutorials on her makeup and costumes on YouTube. Well, that makes it sound like she made this costume when she's not doing work for Netflix, Amazon, etc. That's super cool. So maybe she's really in the industry. And
but see what I mean? There's a machine behind this. She is using imagery like this to promote her brand, her tutorials, her work with Netflix and Amazon. Like it all just kind of builds upon itself to where, you know, I don't know what she's fronting to have this commissioned, if she's even doing that. Maybe this is just totally free work that you're doing to get the images yourself, which is important too from a photographer standpoint. But I think if you look at a lot of the images in the full post, it's just a lot of people's friends, and you know, I don't see a money generating route unless you go to this super high end level.
Absolutely. Or you go the super low end route, but you work for numbers, you know, kind of like school portraits.
Or we have some wedding photographers that literally shoot. We have a friend, did he say he booked 60 weddings in the last 2 months?
Something like that. But he shoots, I would say, like middle of the road weddings. But we have other friends that shoot elopements just for a few $100, and they'll show for like 30 minutes and take pictures, but they knock out a few a day.
Like 5 a week or something.
Yeah, they're doing pretty good. All right, next up. We've talked enough about this.
Next image, if I can get my iPad to work. This looks like a Civil War portrait.
This was taken by Emily Moore. She says, my friend Jay and I decided to do an American Civil War Union soldier themed shoot. This was a 3-light setup, a beauty dish key light, a softbox to provide some fill, and a background light on a brown canvas backdrop. Interesting.
And then she says she used a flag off to the side to kind of create that shadow.
This is, there's something interesting about the shadow on the left side of his face. Is that a fake shadow? It looks like it's been burned in or something.
She writes that they used a Matthews flag to create the shadow along the left side of the face and hand. That's the left side of the model or the left side of the camera? I mean, his hand's on the left side.
I would imagine that's camera left. So
I've wanted to make a video about this, how easy it is in post to make this effect, but how infuriating it can be to try to, especially when you try to get the really hard edge. You've seen some portraits, like if you try to do this where you have like the slither of light going through someone's face, and you're trying to block off and card the key light, that can be very difficult, especially if you're in a small space. But how relatively easy it is to do in post, and it's kind of like, It's not quite the same effect, but you can fake it pretty easily.
Are you ready to rate this?
I am.
3, 2, 1. I'm going 4 again. I mean, I feel like this is incredibly well done. I love the look of this guy. Super interesting expression on his face. Lighting's very interesting. That flagged shadow that she's created on the camera left side, I find it really interesting. I feel like that's making this a lot more interesting than if that wasn't there. And somebody in the comments on Fstoppers wrote, "Shame you cropped off the end of the pistol." And I didn't notice that until I read that, but I do kind of feel that way. I feel like this image needs to be cropped in more, and you need to crop more of the gun, or you need to back out just the littlest bit to see the whole gun. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't. I don't know that my mind would have gone there immediately, but you know, with limbs and stuff, people always complain about where to crop at the knee or the foot or the arm or a hand being out of the frame. So maybe it's the same with guns?
Yeah.
What I like about this image is that if this was shot to look more like a studio, or it doesn't have that shadow on the left-hand side, I think it would psychologically feel kind of out of place. Because of that shadow, it kind of feels like he's in an old tent, or because the background is that brown canvas. Like there's enough there that makes you feel like this could be shot on location, only with the world's greatest camera at the time. But I like all of these little hints of light and the light streaming through a small opening and just a little bit of light on the background. I think all of those things subconsciously make this feel more like a portrait taken in the era. I just watched, I think I was talking about this on our other show, I watched the documentary Grant recently. Okay. And there's a scene in this, I think it's a 2-part documentary, but each part is like 2 or 3 hours. So it's like a 6 or 7 hour thing. But there's a point when there's a photographer taking portraits of Grant, and I can't remember if it's like leading up to his greatest battle, but you see the actual picture taken throughout the documentary a few times. And it's just really interesting to see these old images of, you know, war soldiers and generals and how they were portrayed, you know, and they're posing against whatever. But this feels like everything came together in a similar way. Like a lot of it is the character himself, the person.
Absolutely.
I've noticed picking a lot of the images in this critique. I mentioned earlier, the lighting is awesome, but the design isn't awesome. Or the design's awesome, but the lighting's cheesy. There's some images, maybe even one coming up, where I feel like everything looks awesome, but the character isn't quite the right person, you know?
Yep.
And so I think if you're going to go down this route, it's just so, this is why people have casting calls.
Well, you know, I keep thinking, and I've thought this for years, that I really want to create a feature-length movie at some point in my life. And I feel like I'm learning so much about lighting and cameras and editing and post-processing and audio.
That's the easy part?
For me, that will be the easy part. But the scariest part to me is like, what if you assemble this entire team and then you start filming and you're like, these actors aren't good, or like the way these actors look don't really fit with the vibe of this, and I don't even really know, I don't have an intuition, I don't think, about like what exactly should this person look like. I want to use my friends. I want to know people I know. Yeah. Because that's easy for me to grab.
And they're characters to you, and you remember the greatest stories they've told, and you're like, if I can just capture that.
Yeah.
The problem is, you know, we deal with people all the time where we put a camera in front of them making our tutorials, and all of a sudden, what they're great at off camera, they have a struggle with on camera.
Yeah.
I think that's a whole other skill.
Did you know that Back to the Future, they filmed a large portion of that first movie with a different actor? Yeah, and then they were like, this isn't working, you're fired.
Well, that's the other thing. You mentioned, you know, the actors, but like kind of going back to photography, it's like your concept, the theme, all of the pieces coming together. In the movie industry, that's really the script. You know, like imagine if you have the right actors and you start going down the path. And, you know, so many things are filmed out of order, and you have the dailies where you're trying to like watch the shots that you did that day to move on to the next one. Imagine if you get down the road, I don't know, for you, it'd be like a few weeks. For some people, it might be a couple months, and you realize this script isn't working. There was a show called what's the one Matt Damon
Project
does?
Greenlight.
Project Greenlight, and I think it was the last one they did where they have this really arrogant guy who the whole time just wants to shoot on film when he only has the budget to do digital. And like you're watching the biggest sets with all these actors. I mean, it's incredible. I highly recommend watching this series.
It's a
HBO
reality
documentary.
show on the creation of a movie from the very start to the finish. And they get
From picking a director, he's
Yeah.
the winner, to being handed $2 million, $3 million.
like that. Yeah. And we both agreed. We ended up watching the show, loved the show. It was a nightmare. It gave me like heart palpitations watching it. And then we watched the movie, and we felt like the cinematography was great, but the story was so
The
bad.
acting was good, but the script, where things are going and where the twists and turns are, and the purpose for this film
Yes.
was awful.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking, man, like, and we've met some screenwriters. We met one recently here in Puerto Rico.
Yep.
And he was just saying how important that part of the process is. And it's so easy to overlook that. But when you read a script like Fear and Loathing or Dumb and Dumber or Pulp Fiction, and you just read it, guys who are in that world can say, man, this is perfect.
I see. That's where I think I'm lacking so much, because I've heard that. I'm like, you just need to go read the scripts of your favorite movies, and
Without
so
seeing the actors and just trying to read it as a novel.
So I've tried to do that. Like I tried to read Dumb and Dumber's script, and I'm like, this sounds so corny.
Yeah.
There's no way I could read this and be like, genius. This is going to be my favorite comedy movie. I'd be like, come on, man, Shrimp on the Barbie. Like that's not a good joke.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that's why you get the two actors in there, and suddenly, like without Jim Carrey, that movie falls apart.
I know.
Did they make a Dumb and Dumber without Jim Carrey? And then they made a second one with him?
I
Is that
think
what happened?
so. Yeah.
I never watched those two.
Yeah, they had like younger actors. I don't know. We're going off on crazy tangents here. Let's move on.
All right. Well, are we reading community ratings? I think this one was one of the top ones as well.
Let's see what the community says.
This was a 3.42.
3.42.
She also has a behind the scenes. If you want to go to Emily H. Moore Photo on Instagram, you can check that out. Moving on.
Now, who is this? Is this not Steve Lowe as well? Or what is his name? David Lowe?
Maybe. I think I chose two of his images. There was a
Yes, it
third
is.
image that it was a composite
David
image.
Love. I've been saying his name wrong this whole time. Sorry. David Love.
He had a third
L-O-V-E.
image of a composite of all the cosplay that he did that I wanted to put in here, but I was like, I can't choose three of his images.
Yeah.
And so many people, just a heads up, so many of you had high rating images and had absolutely nothing in the description. So there was no way to the point of the show doing it live is that we can read more about the images that you post. So you have to write something about the image itself.
Well, this is what he wrote. The first time I saw cosplay, it was adults in costumes in hotel lobbies or parking lots. I had been a graphic designer for 16 years by then, so I thought it would look better to show the characters in their own worlds. That was 2012, and I've been at it as my core business since. Danielle DeNicola is an amazing cosplayer, and just seeing the work she does inspires me to want to match her efforts. I don't like recreating official art, but here we did some game box cover, all created from my own stock images. Pretty cool. Are you ready to rate this?
I feel like this image looks better on our lower monitor that has more contrast than it does probably what you guys are seeing, and on my iPad. It's like things are punchier, and that's affecting the way that I like
see
this
your
image.
iPad?
You think it's just not bright enough?
No. I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's on our big screen TV. A little more contrast is added to it.
All right, you ready?
3, 2, 1. Yeah, I'm in between a 3 and a 4 here. This one feels a little bit more composite-y to me than his first image of, was it Wonder Woman?
Yep.
I like this, and obviously like the color tones are all cohesive. Maybe it's the depth of field or something. It feels like
There's a ton of depth of field like right behind her, 10 or 15 feet back.
Yeah.
But then when you scroll just up a little bit, I don't know if that's like a ship. There's some lines in here that are kind of sharp, but then super blurry. Like there's this abstract stuff in the background.
Yeah, so it makes it feel like the depth of field doesn't really make sense. And also, if that's a boat in the bottom right, it certainly looks like a boat in the bottom right. For that mast, I believe, to be that big, it almost feels like this shot was taken with a telephoto lens or something, like really far back and zoomed in to compress her in that boat.
You're talking about the mast right behind her back?
Yeah. It just makes it feel like that part of the image is shot with a telephoto lens, but then the cave is shot with a wide angle lens, and so, I don't know. Still great.
Yeah, it's really cool. At first, when I saw this small, I was kind of like, man, her pose is like so sexy for this. Like, I understand the whole Tomb Raider thing.
Yeah.
She was the first character to really bring the sex appeal in. But then I zoom in, and I'm like, oh, she's got like a cut on her arm. And she's like holding her arm, but it just, again, it kind of feels like she's like out of it. She doesn't really have a purpose there.
I agree. It's kind of,
just kinda
more
like
like a fashion pose than a, like, I'm about to... I don't even know the story of Tomb Raider.
I mean, is this Tomb Raider or is this another character?
I thought this is Lara Croft. I'm pretty sure this is Lara Croft. They redid her in the last few years, and she looks more like this. But
she didn't have the short, like,
yeah, I think they gave
hiking
her
pants, like she's from a national park or something.
Yeah, I think they gave her long pants and boots. But I don't know. Well done. Next up. Come on, Patrick.
This is like a Mad Hatter theme.
This was taken by Stefan Thomas. He says, the Mad Hatter and the Red Queen at the tea party shot at my studio. I know it doesn't really look like it. I know it doesn't really look like it was shot outdoors, but for cosplay / fantasy styled shoot, I think it fits. I took some fake plants and a tree branch to create framing for the scene.
I actually think it does look kind of like it's outside.
At night?
Maybe.
That's how it looks to me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what? Like, this doesn't feel like it was shot during the day.
Okay.
This feels like I've set it up outside at my house in Charleston where I have that wall full of foliage.
Yeah.
And, like, you just kind of
Yeah.
built a set there.
I agree. It feels outside to me. But I've got a complaint. I've got a complaint.
You all right? You ready?
3, 2, 1. I'm going to be rough. I'm giving it 2. I just don't get these models, and I don't get the expressions and the posing. It feels really weird to me. And maybe there's something about the movie that I don't know, but the fact that she's looking right into the camera, and I feel like, I mean, what's going on with the lighting on their faces being white, but then their bodies have color tone in them? I mean, is that just makeup? That just seems kind of weird to me. And then the fact that he's looking out of frame, I don't know. Part of
It's
me...
a girl, right?
Really?
I mean, that's a female. I can see her bustier, you know, something.
Okay. I thought the Mad Hatter was a dude. I don't know.
I don't think it matters. They're
I
changing
thought it was Steven
genders
Tyler.
of everybody. Like,
But I don't know. I just, when I compare this with the last 3 images where I feel like the models really fit so much better, this just kind of feels like a Halloween party or something to me.
I totally agree. Like, I still gave this a 3 because I think for most people's portfolio, it's a good image. It's a solid image. But I always think of this being like a bell curve where I'm like, a 3 is a solid image, but then to get to a 4 or a 5, the difference between a 4 and a 5, it's very small. It's like it's hard to place it, you know? It's hard to really tell you what the difference is sometimes. But the difference is so big that it's hard to make that jump sometimes. Like a 1 and a 2. It's hard to go from a snapshot that looks horrible to a 2. But then when you get to a 3, I just feel like the majority of images for most people might fall under this is a solid image for your portfolio. But I totally agree. I feel like the casting of the characters, this kind of reminds me of, maybe this is what I was referring to when I was just talking about the Civil War portrait, where that guy felt like he was perfectly cast.
Yeah.
These two people, I'm just not so sure are the right people. They could be if they had the right expression, and you pulled that out of them, you could make it work. But I just feel like they're placed there. I don't remember this story well enough.
Yeah.
Are they enemies, or is there's some dynamic between them? It just feels like they're hanging out, and I don't know.
Feels like they're just posing for.
And now that you've mentioned the whiteness of their face versus the color of, especially the girl to the right, her body.
Yeah.
Like I just keep seeing that, and I'm thinking. And then the Mad Hatter looking up to the top. It's just kind of strange.
All right, next up.
So this is the same exact model.
Why would you have done this?
Man, there were so many bad images. There were so many bad images. And the images I picked, and I opened them up in different tabs, when I went back, they wrote absolutely nothing.
Okay.
So some of the
so
highest...
You have to punish them for that.
So some of the highest rated images have no context at all.
Well, Stefan shot this again, obviously. This was shot in my home studio as part of an Alice in Wonderland cosplay series. The model is a very good friend of mine and made the whole costume herself, including the amazing hat. I used 2 gelled flashes for atmosphere to give the whole picture a green, bluish/yellow look to fit her outfit. I added smoke to make it feel more cinematic. I do like this one
ready?
much more. Yeah, let's do it. 3, 2, 1. I about gave this one a 4.
I'm at a high 3. And I think when I was thinking, why should I even put these both in here? Again, I was pulling at straws. Like, once I got to a low enough rating, the images were horrendous.
Yeah.
But these two, I can't remember how separated they were from the votes. But when I saw this more telephoto, 50 millimeter portrait, I was like, this is a lot better, even though the other one I think was rated higher. I could have that backwards. But there's something about shooting wide angle and having 2 people in your image that is extremely difficult to do as a photographer. Have you ever had to shoot a wider frame and really decide what you're going to crop and not crop, but you need it wide enough to show the context,
and
then
you want to
need
have
them
interesting lighting on both of them,
and you want them to play off each other, and I think a lot of reasons, that's why people put their camera on a tripod and then they composite in sometimes the best person to get the best frame. Because I did a shoot recently, it's like 3 or 4 models, and the scene was amazing. It was like I was thrown into the best possible situation. But then when you get back, there's always one person who's not quite right. And so directing, as you direct more people in your image, it just gets exponentially harder and harder.
Yeah.
And so this, I think now suddenly I said, oh, the models don't look like they were cast perfectly. I think this works way better.
Yeah.
And if I had to choose, I probably wouldn't put 2 images of the same thing in my portfolio. I would totally throw the other one out, and I would just use this one.
Yeah. Because this one, I don't know, the other one felt like a Halloween party, like, hey, let's get a shot of everybody's outfits.
We got donuts, and we got a bunch of random stuff.
This one feels like a, like a fashion shot or a location portrait. It could be an editorial shot for some story about this person. I don't know. This just seems to have a lot more uses to me. The other one kind of felt like a fun game. This one feels like a professional image that fits with a broader portfolio, in my opinion. Next up.
And then we had a lot of stuff like this. I was reading some of the comments, and people were like, Patrick's going to have a heyday with this. They know I already hate the cosplay theme and genre.
Yeah.
And here we are with little bit of weirdness.
This was taken by Petrie Domston, and he says this was a collaboration shoot with another local camera club member, Merja, who also provided the dress. Model and makeup, blah, blah, blah. We did 2 shoots in the club studio assisting each other. Mine was about this a bit silly white vampire. This is one of the images in the 7-image series. My images are often dark, but this time I decided to go in the opposite direction. I like how the subject that is often presented in a darker tones works in a lighter environment. Sorry.
You're having a hard time reading there. I mean, it is written in a kind of weird
a little
way.
Strangely.
So, to paraphrase all that, this is a vampire shoot where he made the vampire bright and airy, and completely opposite of what you would normally think a vampire would be, dark and black and at night.
Now, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, cool, what an interesting set design and everything. But looking at this again, is this just shot on seamless and then he photoshopped in some background?
There's something about the floor that looks super fake to me. I don't know if it's disappearing at the right perspective.
Yes.
I know we've had conversations with Monty Isom about how to shoot things. He shot crowds of people, and there's like, as it goes further, the horizon dips lower, or is it higher? I don't even know how I would do that, but this feels like the floor has been dropped in. Some of the shadows are just so bright. Maybe they would kind of be like that on white, but I would imagine they would go darker. My issue with this is just like, this seems like it's kind of cool and going in a cool direction, and then you have to add the most unmarketable thing to it, which is like a vampire with blood all over. I don't get it. I just think, like, make this a queen or something. Make it feel like a Netflix thumbnail for some documentary or some period piece.
The red, though, does make this pop. If every single thing was white, you might have trouble seeing it.
Yeah, and I think you would then have to play with the tones. You'd have to make the background more gray, but just a little, just enough to cause some separation. You can't have everything the same shade of white. And we have that in the shadows here on the table. Like, there's different grays there. Maybe you could make the background a little bit more gray, but I just don't get it. It's like you're at this Victorian ballroom with a vampire drinking by herself. I don't know. It's strange to me.
Are you ready to rate it?
I'm ready to rate it.
3, 2, 1. I'm going 3.
I'm a high 3. I can see where, like, kind of like the other image.
A high 2.
A high 2? I can see where it could fall in your portfolio, but for me, I don't get it. Okay. It's strange.
Next up.
Maybe right here is an interesting point where I wanted to show what I think is some of the best costume design, horror photography I've ever seen.
Okay.
And I'm such a critic of it. I don't like it. But when I view Joshua Hoffline, do you remember this guy? Do you remember his work?
You want me to go full screen?
Yeah, go full screen.
PC?
This guy is a designer and makeup artist, photographer, and he does these horror images that I think are incredible. And when I see them, like this one I actually thought was a little cheesy. Like, I'm not a big fan of that. But if you scroll down, like, he just goes so over the top, and like every image is, and it's funny because I haven't seen his work in probably like 8 years.
I don't think I know who this is. Like, what have we talked about this guy before?
I don't think we ever have. Okay. I just found him maybe even before I started Fstoppers. So it's been a long time since I've looked at his work. But some of it's very over the top. But it always has like a direct theme and in your face. Like when I look at these images and then I see the images that are often sent into our critique that they want to be this, I see a huge gap between the two. Mm-hmm. And so I just thought some of this is really interesting stuff.
It's kind of weird. A lot of these images appear to be smashed. Like the aspect ratio isn't as shot. Like this one looks normal, but I don't know. But yeah, definitely very stylized.
See, like that, I'm not a fan of that. That looks super cheesy to me. And it's funny because now that I'm looking at these, having not looked at them for 10 years, I'm viewing them differently than I did when I first
You're
saw
not
them.
as impressed.
But it's got this like Dave LaChapelle feel. Like I love that image.
Yeah,
Like
that's
there's
cool.
there's stuff here.
I've seen this. Where was this? Was this posted on Fstoppers?
I mean, maybe 8 years ago.
This is super cool.
But it feels like more of this was shot in camera. Like he's building a lot of these sets. And
Yep.
it has this more real element that also is, it's like Dave LaChapelle. When you look at his stuff, you're like, the production value is so high, but then it's so weird and quirky that there's something that separates his work from other people who try to emulate that work, especially in post. When you start having, you have Britney Spears on the side of Times Square eating a popsicle, and it's actually there. It looks very, very different than you take a model and you put her in the popsicle stand and you Photoshop Times Square in the background. You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's something about doing it in camera that does translate over. But I don't know. I just thought since a lot of images were submitted with this horror type of look to them, there's a lot of images of his that I don't like. I'm the first to admit that, but
I'm a big fan. These are all really cool to me, and they have a vibe to them that's very. Who's the Nightmare Before Christmas director?
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton. Yeah, it's just like it's not necessarily trying to look ultra real, but it's has this style to it that you recognize as Joshua's work. That's pretty cool.
All right, the next image is kind of in that vein.
Okay.
This is going to be kind of hard to see, perhaps, because it's so dark.
This image was taken by Demetrius Green. He says, hopefully this falls under the costume theme. I rented a space in a church that was perfect for a ghost shoot. Got an assistant to paint her arm red and a model friend to dress up as a ghost. There was a door to that lead to a backyard. And if I closed it just enough, I got a great stream of light and a drag to hell vibe. What church allowed you to rent their building to do this? Although I'm looking at the door frame and maybe it was an abandoned church, but interesting, very interesting. I have some thoughts though. Are you ready to rate this?
Yeah, I think so.
3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going 2 stars, but with absolutely the potential for 3 or 4. I don't like the composition. There's all this weird dead space at the bottom that you can't see anything that's going on down there, and then it's like we've cropped out her fingertips on her hand and stuff. It's like I would almost rather be down low, tilt the camera up, get rid of that dead space on the bottom there, and show, what she's reaching for or something. Or at the very least, crop in a lot tighter and just cut out that dead space.
I agree. I'm trying to think what I even have to contribute to this. Like, if you're going down this magical theme, is there any reason to make the door frame brighter and make it feel like salvation or heaven or freedom, and then maybe have the shadows with a red light or something to make it more like hell and dark? Or I don't know, like I'm just thinking of Josh's images. A lot of his plays on the fears that humans have, and he has a lot of pictures of little girls and little boys like in bed, and there's a demon under the bed. Like they're very kind of obvious themes, right?
Okay.
And I just feel like this one, like, who is this? It's some girl who's like covered, like maybe he's in a different part of the world and this is a different culture. But when I view this, it almost feels like the Middle East, but then they wouldn't have the same view of hell. I don't know. I'm just reading this and I'm like, it might work better if it was a normal human who is involved in a car accident and now they're going through the post-life transition or something. But I'm like, she almost feels like she herself is a demon or something dark and creepy, right?
Right.
I don't know. It's I'm kind of reading into the narrative and reading into the casting and the costumes, and it just doesn't quite. It feels like a cheaper horror movie to me.
And did you ever watch the movie A Ghost Story?
No.
Do you recognize? Whoops, sorry. Do you recognize? What the hell is going on with my computer? I hate when the computer tries to be like too smart and it has these gestures, and it's like if you move the mouse this way, then we'll minimize
You're
everything.
complaining about gestures. Another one of my favorite day conversations.
On Windows, but this movie here, A Ghost Story. Do you recognize this?
I've never seen this, but look how simple that image is. But how would you rate that image? And there's something about it that looks kind of cool and.
Well, I mean, what do you think? What do you think of like these are scenes from the movie? This is the movie.
I mean, I can't imagine this is good. Did you love this? And you're like, this is one of your favorite horror movies in the last couple of years?
This movie, I probably think about this movie more than any movie I've ever seen.
What?
This movie really messed me up. It's a very simple premise. It's like there's a couple, the guy dies, he becomes a ghost, and he's represented as just this guy in a bedsheet.
Yeah.
And he's just always there as his wife like goes on with her life.
He doesn't do anything scary.
He does nothing. He just stands there.
Yeah.
And that's the whole movie.
And so he represents like a memory that you can't detach from or something?
I guess, I don't know, but it is so sad and so disturbing. I don't know. Like I'm getting freaked out just thinking about it right now, but it's not.
Did you enjoy the first Paranormal Activity? I thought that one was really clever with the webcams and stuff.
I think so.
The one that got me was, is it The Babadook?
Yeah.
Where it's like these psychological thrillers where it's like the kid, your child, I'm trying to remember the theme of the movie, like the child gets a book or gets exposed to this character, and the more he thinks about him, the character shows up into this family's life. It's like super creepy.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't feel like, oh, there's a guy coming after me and I could maybe handle him, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all those movies I still like. But The Babadook, I remember watching that just being like, man, this is like Exorcist level where you're scared of the unknown affecting your family or your daughter or your kid. You know, it kind of has that Rosemary's Baby type of vibe to it where, oh my gosh, what if my kid was affected or possessed or able to see something that seems like everyone around you is saying it's a psychological problem that your kid has, but then you know it's more than that.
I'm currently watching The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix. It's a 10-episode series.
Yeah.
And I don't really watch anything, but I heard so many good reviews of this that I'm watching, and I think I'm halfway through, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
The one I started watching, like Kristen hates horror movies. I can't even watch trailers without her getting.
That's how my wife is.
And it's my favorite genre. It's
your favorite genre?
I think so. I mean, I grew up watching Nightmare on Elm Street. Like my mom tells a story about when she went off on a trip and she came back, and I was like, "Here's Johnny." And my mom was like, "What are you doing letting him stay up for the Johnny Carson show? It's like at 11 o'clock. And my dad was like, "Oh, no, we watched The Shining." And so
that's fine.
I feel like I love it. But there was one with, what's M. Night Shyamalan?
Yep.
He has a show on HBO, I think. And I wanted to love it. I went like 9 episodes deep into this thing. I forget what it's called. It's about a child.
I wouldn't know.
It was awful. Awful. And I want there to be something here. It feels like this could be so cool.
Well, maybe you should watch Haunting of Hill House. I think you'd like it.
All right, well, let's move on.
Moving on.
So I did not have time, but this is a character in, I think, Caribbean culture, maybe? And so I wanted to look her up before we went live, but I didn't have time. I don't know if this is going so long that you don't want to look her up, but Cartagena? Is that the name of this character? Is that how you say that?
I don't know.
She's an Afro-latino fruit lady? I don't know any background on what this is, but I saw this image, and they wrote a description, Angela Perez here, and I thought this is kind of worth putting in here.
Now, I don't care at all, but has this model's skin been darkened? I mean, it's certainly, she appears to have more Caucasian facial features, but you know, really dark skin, but it doesn't look like it was added in real life. It almost looks like it was darkened in post or something.
I don't think so. I mean, one thing I've definitely noticed living here in Puerto Rico, and my fiance, her family's Jamaican, and, you know, we've traveled a lot to different islands, is that there is so much mixing of different cultures and blood and races here in the Caribbean, more than many places I've been throughout the world, that, you know, you see all kinds of different features and skin tones from people all over this place, you know. It's very hard to, you know, pinpoint where somebody is from. The second you think like, oh, you look very African, and they're like, I'm actually more from Spain or from Portugal. But, you know, there's a blending of everything to where
I agree with you.
I feel like I've shot girls in the studio that are on our YouTube channel that look very Puerto Rican skin-wise, but have features that look very Caucasian.
I agree. There's just something about this that does not feel natural. Maybe it's just that they've added the pink over the eyes or something.
I think there's a heavy amount of skin retouching. She almost looks a little plastic to me. But I don't know. You ready to rate this?
I think.
Copy her name and pull up a picture of what this character looks like.
Cartagena, isn't that the capital of Colombia? Yes, it is.
Look at you. I've met so many people that say we got to go to Colombia.
I know.
Like a lot of people in Puerto Rico, it's a popular vacation country. And I've always wanted to go, but unfortunately.
So I'm searching Cartagena character on Google right now, and literally nothing is coming up.
Go back up. There was a few. I mean, there's a girl in the marketplace.
Where? Here?
Yeah. Is that this person?
I think that's literally in Cartagena, Colombia. So anyway, are you ready to rate this?
I am ready.
3, 2, 1. I'm so close. I'm going for it. I'm going 4.
You're going 4.
You're blocking your hand.
Nope, 3.
I mean, maybe I need to see it full res. It's kind of hard to see it from this distance, but I really like it. I mean, the styling of this looks awesome. The lighting looks fantastic.
Do you want more depth of field? Do you feel like the fruit should be in focus? Or what's going on with the depth of field? It feels like they're kind of far away. Like 50 millimeters, like it's fairly wide. Maybe this is 35 millimeters. But the depth of field where the camera is placed seems so shallow for... Do you think they've added a gradient or something to make the foreground blurrier than what a lens would normally do?
I'm not necessarily seeing that.
It almost reminds me of like your 50-1.2, where if you were to shoot further away, but could you get that shallow a depth of field even at 1.2?
Her bottom leg to me looks pretty exaggerated, like they're shooting with a relatively wide angle lens. I'm trying to think of like what I don't like. What makes this look a little cheaper to me?
It's the skin retouching. Her face looks so plasticky and over the top.
Let me see that.
I'm not like... Why don't you just go full screen here?
Okay, so now that I see this closer, I apologize, photographer. Oh, and I'm also seeing the depth of field better. Yeah, that is weird. It's very shallow down here. Okay.
Does that seem natural? Do you have a lens? Like maybe could a tilt shift do that? I know this isn't done with a tilt shift.
Something feels weird for sure. Okay, I am, and it's funny now that I see her face with more resolution. Her skin tone looks complete. Like it's so funny because we're looking at multiple different monitors here. So right now I'm looking on an iPad and I can zoom in, and this looks totally natural to me. I think the colors on our big screen
I see.
make it look crazy.
It's like
But
super red and
this
yellow.
doesn't look like her skin tone's been altered at all on this iPad. But on our wildly saturated TV, it's like the colors look crazy compared to this.
It's funny because I mentioned earlier there was an image that I liked the contrast better on our TV.
Yeah.
But now that I see the TV, I'm like, yeah, don't look at that.
Yeah. Okay.
So you gave this a 4?
Yeah, I'm going to downgrade it. I'm going to downgrade it to a 3.
So wait, you saw the better version of it, and it brought your rating down?
So there's things that from a distance, it's like if people are watching this right now on their cell phones, you're not going to be able to see all these little details that I just saw when I was able to zoom in on the iPad. But from a distance, me looking at this on the TV, it just looks like a super high-end fashion shot. When I see it on that, I'm seeing like weird skin retouching. I'm seeing strange, what appears to be fake shallow depth of field being added. It just seems cheaper high-res.
I wish the model's eyes. Can I zoom in any more for you guys up there? Like, I just feel like her eyes, it's like the catch light's not there. So her eyes go black, and then they just look so sleepy and droopy. They like, doesn't she almost look like she's like wasted or something? Her lips and like the expression on her face.
That's fashion, bro.
I mean, that's the joke.
It
does feel like a fashion image, and I love the hat. I love the lighting. I don't know what I feel about this weird shallow depth of field, but I think it's a cool image. I would like to see the retouching on her face pulled back a little so that she doesn't look so plasticky.
All right, next up. I think you skipped past something, didn't you? Did you mean to do that?
I mean, this is the next image for me.
All right, this was taken by Greg Desiatov. And he says, Strawberry Siren is a burlesque artist in Melbourne, Australia, and she wanted me to shoot her in this amazingly detailed gown from one of her shows. I had an amazing team on the day, and the hairstylist had created this wonderful do for the look. In post, I did some tonal curves as well as overlaid some textures to try to give it a classic painterly look. The falcon was added in post, and the background is a combination of about 6 different images. We should probably go full screen here. Sorry. Lighting was a 2-strobe setup that included a rectangular softbox to the front right and a gridded barn door behind her.
To the front right. Camera left, right?
It does kind of seem like that, right? Softbox to the camera left, gridded light to the back right.
What kind of softbox do you think this is? Is this a pretty large? I mean, the fall off from the top to the bottom is pretty even.
It does seem like that, but then at the same time, it kind of seems like there's some relatively harsh shadows going on under her chin and stuff, which would lead me to believe that it was a smaller softbox. Like, look at her as a clavicle muscle in her neck. Like, where?
Well, I'm looking at the opening where her like cleavage would be, and the shadow is sideways. So it almost feels like the light's lower than the top of the dress. Like the shadow is kind of being cast perfectly sideways, if not almost up. Some funny business?
There's some funny business going on for show. Okay, I'm ready. 3, 2, 1. I'm in between a 2 and a 3. Here's the thing. I hate doing this because I feel like there's so much potential here. A couple of things. One, I hate the camera position in relation to the grass. The background of this looks awesome with the trees and those clouds and the castle or whatever back there. It looks so cool. And then you look down and she's just standing in some grassy park where it looks like some kid's gonna, throw a football at her.
Where did he say this was shot? Like the background is fake, but how much of the ground do you think all of this leading up, like everything I have here, is all original and then it transitions somewhere back here.
Yeah, which makes me think just crop it wide, so just show her torso up, and that's a better image. Patrick, crop in and show more, like go beyond the grass.
It's
like
not
that.
super easy to crop in on an iPad. So what I'm seeing on mine is different than yours, but different than up here.
Oh, why don't you turn your iPad?
Because it's a vertical image.
But you've been doing that for all the images.
Like that?
I just think that looks better.
Yeah.
I feel like the worst part of this image is the grass. And then he put these effects on the background, which I really like, but it doesn't appear that he put them on the girl's body or face. Is that the case?
Was his intention to make it look like she's standing in front of a canvas and like the background is fake, but she's not? Or he's trying to make the image look old and therefore the effect would be on her as well?
I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like that. I want it to look like the whole thing is a painting, you know? But I feel like the model looks great. Cool falcon. Good job with the compositing there. Really cool hairdo. Love what you did in creating that background above her waist. I just feel like the bottom of the image ruins it for me.
If you wanted to keep the bottom of the image, would you cut her out, or would you have lowered the camera to shoot to where the ground and the grass, instead of going like this, it comes down and you're just seeing a sliver of it?
Yeah, or put her on something. Like maybe if she was standing next to the water, or she was on some platform or something. I don't know, but being so high up, shooting down towards the grass like that. I think all portraits of people look bad like this. So,
what do you think this was shot at? Does this feel like it's shot?
I mean, it feels kind of wide to me.
Yeah.
The way that grass is moving towards the camera, it kind of feels like this was shot at 24 millimeters or something. If I was shooting a family portrait or I was shooting weddings or whatever, I love the spot. It's fine. Just back up a little bit, zoom in, and sit on the ground. And then you're shooting up just the littlest bit. It doesn't look like you're shooting up at people. It doesn't look like you're looking up their nose. But then you wouldn't make this whole image about the grass.
So there were a lot of images on the main contest page. You can go to fstoppers.com/contest and see contests with an S. There was a lot of images like this. And I thought it would be interesting. I was mentioning earlier that some of these images should be compared to movie posters. I thought, well, let me see what Disney does, because I feel like Disney is the absolute best at this, you know? You have some of the best photographers in the world shooting. I mean, you can think of Anne Leibovitz shooting Ariel and Ursula, and you remember those images from Little Mermaid?
Yeah.
So click up here and let's put some of the Mulan images and look at how these are shot and look how they're edited, and compare this to what we've seen so far. Like, in some ways, they're more simple. I mean, this almost looks like really flat, natural. I think this top image, I think that's a screen grab from the production while they were filming.
Okay.
And then they have sharpened it, and they've added the highlight on the sword and the mountains in the background. But this is just kind of a screen grab, but yet it became the main image for them. Now click on her in general. I was just going to look at Mulan. I mean, you could scroll down and look at the other ones, but if you look at all of these images,
if they will load,
I think I thought maybe to the left. I already have it preloaded. Princesses.
Here.
Is that the one? No, maybe it's the other one. Scroll down. Like, look at some of these characters and the way that they've shot these and edited them. I don't think we've seen anything. Like, when I look at these, the costumes are incredible. The background plates are incredible too, but I just feel like this is the highest level of this type of photography.
But nothing in these images feels unattainable. Nothing feels like, oh man, the production's so high here that I could never do that. It definitely feels doable, but a lot of it is the actors and the way their faces look naturally, And then and then probably second is the
costumes.
The costumes, but I mean, look at Mulan's costume right here. This isn't that ornate or that difficult. Some of these other ones are. I wouldn't know where to get anything like this stuff, but yeah, I mean, just great facial expression, really cool windy hair and everything.
Also, like these particular images, like look how tight they are. They're cutting off half of their body. They're not showing them. We've complained that it looks like sometimes they're not in the middle of an action scene or something, but some of them just look heroic, or, you know, like, look at the guy on the bottom right. He's almost stoic. He has like no facial expression at all, but it still looks really cool.
This one, maybe he's got just a very tall head, but this one does not feel correct to me. This one feels like it's been stretched vertically. Do you agree with that? His head is just so thin and tall, but maybe that's just what the dude looks like.
Yeah. Somebody in one of our last videos thought that that's what happened to our live feed. They were like, his head doesn't match his body. I think it might be my hair is making my head look larger than what.
Well, you've got a normal sized head and a little elf body, so that'll happen. Do we have any more?
Let's see. We have a few more. Here's the next image.
Next. What character is this? Do you have any idea?
I don't. I saw another image of this, but they didn't have a description, so I couldn't choose it.
I mean, again, it's kind of hard. Let me see the iPad, because from where I'm sitting, this appears to be 100% CGI. Is this a real like, even when I'm looking in on this on an iPad, if I had to guess, I would say this is animation. This is not real at all.
Well, that's what I felt. That was going to be my critique, is it just seems like, why even do this if it looks like it's made in a computer program?
What did he say about it?
You were just on it.
I know, but that wasn't the submission.
That wasn't the submission?
No, that was on his portfolio. So Alejandro Espeche says this is League of Legends Katarina cosplay by cosplayer Lilia Limone and Flo Tusi edition. Don't know what the heck that means. Now, was this the guy who also took that other League of Legends? I thought it was League of Legends. Like, it was this huge elf-looking guy with a battle axe or something. And it just looked insane. It did not look human at all. And I asked him, is this a real person? And he was like, yeah, it's a real person. And he sent me a video clip of the guy wearing this costume around.
This was in the critique?
Yeah.
This was an option that we had?
Yes, I will find it. It has to be one of the highest rated ones right here.
Oh, yeah.
No, different person. Look at this.
I totally ignored this image.
This is not League of Legends. This is Overwatch. Here.
This felt like a toy or something. And
yes, it feels like a toy. This is a real person in this.
Really?
But sorry, Carl. Patrick did not choose.
I saw the thumbnail and I was like, this is like an action figure. And I didn't, it just seemed like an action figure shot on black. It just didn't feel that interesting to me. But
I guess I'm super impressed by the cosplay itself. Like, how is a human even in that? It doesn't make sense to my brain. But anyway, back to this one. I think this looks amazing. I mean,
but it does look like computer generated.
I know. I want to know what they did to this, and I want my photography to look like this. It's so cool. It looks like a graphic novel or something made with computers. Let's rate this. 3, 2, 1. I'm going at least 4. Like, I think this is my favorite shot. This looks so awesome.
I guess in my mind, I'm trying to figure out if my portfolio looked like this and somebody came across it, would they say, I gotta hire this guy? Or they would say, we can already achieve this with computer graphics? kind of the same conversation I think a lot of people are having with architectural photography. This looks so cool, and there's so much effort that goes into it, but as the technology gets better and we can make better images that are completely fake, do we need to hire the photographer, or can we just create this? Where, I don't know, it's impressive if this is truly photography. It's obviously composited and retouched in a way to give it all the flares and the skin, but it's incredible. Like, I really do love it. I'm just wondering, does his whole portfolio look like this? It's got to, right?
I don't know. Let's see if he's got a portfolio here.
If it's a bad portfolio and this is the only good image, I'm going to be really upset.
So let's take a look at his portfolio here.
This makes me question everything.
He's got some cool stuff. And I've seen some of these images before. I don't know if they've been in critiques or I've just seen them along the
See,
website.
We could do an interesting critique of portfolios, because I look at this portfolio and I see some world-class, 4-star images, and then I see some images that are like 2s or low 3s, and I just feel like if you culled this portfolio down to your best work, like go scroll down, is that the girl? Did we critique this girl before with this?
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen this shot.
And we were like, that seems, she's super young, and it was like super sexy, and her underwear was showing, but I don't know, like, there's all of this incredibly sexy imagery mixed in with with like kind of cheesy compositing, and then in between all of that, you have some awesome images. Like, what is this one with the magenta?
Like, that looks super cool to me.
That is kind of cool.
He should submit it to the next critique.
Oh, look, there's a photo of the day on Fstoppers.
Yes, it was.
But then you got the vampire chick, and I'm like, get rid of that. That should never be in your portfolio. That should never be in your portfolio.
This one's super cool. I really like it. All right, we're going beyond what we should be doing.
But I think it's really interesting because I think, I've seen Zach Arias has been doing recently critiques where he just looks at someone's entire portfolio.
Okay.
Didn't Mike do this recently on our channel? Where he just goes through and he says, you got to get rid of this image, and you got 2 of the same house, get rid of it. You have 5 images of the same model from the same session. Don't show 5 people, Really cull it down to where it's a super tight portfolio. I think that is equally as important as what we're doing, maybe more important than what we're doing. We're just looking at a single image and trying to make sense of it. But when you put them all together as a collection, I'm sure there's images where I say this a lot. If this was part of a huge series, it would be amazing. But as a one-shot image, that's all we have to look at. I'm kind of, this would be weird in your portfolio, right?
I agree. Was that the final image?
I also put in the image that you used as the feature image. This was not submitted, but it is on the Fstoppers community. This photographer, I don't know his last name, is Jan?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Go up to the top of your submission. You have you can click on his portfolio.
Juan Gonzalez.
Many of you may know his photography as the guy who did the recent campaign for the new Fujifilm camera that came out. He also incorporated Elia Liccardi in that photo shoot where he dressed as the ringmaster. If you scroll up, there's an image with a girl on a backdrop with all these like dancers.
This?
That's gravity backdrops that we use here in our studio.
Okay.
That's been featured on their website because he used their backdrops.
Yeah, that picture's so awesome.
He's an incredible photographer. He did not submit anything to this critique, but I thought it would be interesting since you used one of his images as the featured image, and I think it might be the best image of the whole batch, to critique what we see in his image versus the 10 images. Which, by the way, we didn't call out number 2 and number 10.
Yeah, we'll go back and do that.
Number 10 was the previous image.
So you want to rate the image that I used as the featured image here?
I think it'd be interesting. Why not? Like, it's a really cool photo.
Okay. I'm ready.
I'm ready as well.
3, 2, 1. I'm in between a 4 and a 5.
I feel the same way.
I mean, it's awesome. I'm not even really sure what to say about it. I feel like location's great. Lighting's great. Is the lighting a little harsh anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, look at the triangle under her eye. I mean, it's like true Rembrandt lighting. I mean, he's the type of photographer who might be using 4 or 5 lights. You know, there's a lot. There could be fill coming from the right. If you watch his video, I don't know where you can find it, on Fujifilm's channel, or Elia Lacardi has his own show, Moments in Time. The episode where he goes to Jakarta, I think. He goes into the studio. You can just see how this photographer works, which is really interesting. So there's a ton of production. In many ways, this seems more unobtainable than the Disney photos that you showed.
Yeah.
Because I know what went into this. When you see Milan, and I know that's a screen capture from a photographer who had a telephoto lens during the filming, and then that was just edited into the movie poster, that's as easy as it can get in a way, you know? It's a live action, soft light, and then you composite everything in. This probably had a ton more production. This had actual lighting. So in a way, this feels like this is harder to achieve, but I look at this and I say, man, you could do a whole series of Disney princesses. I don't know what this is, Royal Bathe series? Maybe this isn't even a character. This could just be like what royalty looks like as they prepare for their...
Don't know. Super cool. All right.
And then I had one more image that I wanted just to show.
Okay.
We kind of already did this, but this is a movie poster from Milan that's very over the top. This looks less like the other images we looked at.
Zoom in a little bit. I want to see what she looks like back there.
So she has this like shadow from the sword or her hair growing across her face. That small, it almost looks like she has like a Mario Brothers mustache or something.
Well, go up to the real shot.
Well, that's like a male. Oh no, that's a female. But it's like a
different...
different...
I see what it's doing. Okay.
They've juxtaposed like the samurai versus whatever the other outfit is. But
I see.
you look at this and I'm like, this is a 5-star, world-class, unbelievable image.
Really?
You don't think so?
Let me see.
I think that's incredible.
Okay.
I like that
I do
better
like
than
that.
the other images they used for Mulan. Like, I don't know if this is for a different packaging or a different market, but this was not on the Disney website we were just on.
I don't like how they have water ripples on the tree. They have water ripples on the bottom of her dress or kimono, whatever it's called, but then absolutely no distortion over her arm, sword, or face. That doesn't really seem realistic at all to me.
Are you going to put water ripples over her face?
I mean, at least put it on her arm.
I feel like a bigger problem is the shadows on her face. Clone out the mustache. That's weird. Make her face... Look how clean her face is on the top.
Well, I mean, she's... Obviously, windy hair is a big theme in this movie.
I know, but...
I've never seen this movie before, but...
So, the winner, just so we're clear, is the composite, or the image that we feel like...
Isn't even real. Okay, and then what else?
And then it would be the second image, if I remember what that was. That was...
Cool.
The Union fighter.
Cool. 2 images that we really love. Send me a private message on fstoppers.com. Let me know which tutorial you would like from fstoppers.com/store. I'll get that sent right out to you. And if you guys would like to be a part of the next critique, head over to fstoppers.com/contest right now.
What does RGB portrait mean?
So RGB...
Could you shoot it with... You have to use a light that can go...
No. I say in the description, you can have an LED light that can do RGB color, like crazy colors. You can add gels to your lights, or you could add the colors in post. I don't care. I just want unnatural, vivid colors in your photographs.
Okay.
And people are already submitting images right now.
Do we have any super chats that we need to address?
I don't think so.
I feel like I haven't been watching the feed.
No, we haven't really been
When we have
watching the
images
feed.
on the iPad, it's harder to watch the feed, because on the coronavirus journals, all I have is the feed.
Yeah. So we will be back late tonight. We will be doing a coronavirus journal upgrade update. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel, and we will see you guys soon. You got some good stuff that you want to talk about tonight, Patrick?
I don't know how good it is, but there are a lot of things that have happened.
Yes, there are. All right, see you guys. clear.